Huawei, along with Apple and Samsung, is one of the biggest smartphones companies in the world. In 2018, it became the world's largest supplier of equipment needed for telecommunication networks and the second largest smartphone maker, generating a revenue of around 92 billion the previous year. Now, unlike the most Chinese tech companies, Huawei operates mainly overseas as a market leader in several European, Asian, and African countries. Founded in 1987 by a former military officer called Zhen Fei, Huawei has secret ties to the Chinese government with an unknown ownership structure that suggests that the government might indeed have founded the company. As a pioneer in the supply of telecommunication gear during a time when the Chinese government was spending enormous amounts on upgrading its network and importing equipment, could it be that the company was just another front for the government to trick various world-leading countries? Huawei started competing in the international market during the early 1900s with a knack for undercutting rivals in terms of price. Soon, competitors dubbed the company as a cut-rate vendor of copycat equipment. Companies like Cisco Systems and Motorola also filed lawsuits over alleged trade secret theft. But the biggest revelation is that all these shady involvements and dealings by Huawei could come down to a secret truth, and it's owned and controlled by the Chinese government. Keep watching as we unravel more mysteries about Huawei's relationship with the Chinese government. In 2018, the United States intelligence agencies made allegations against Huawei that it had links to the Chinese government and that most of its equipment could possibly contain several backdoors that the Chinese government could use to spy on America. While no evidence was produced at the time, the companies denied the claim. The suspicions persist, especially due to the long history of disagreement and fragile relationships between the Chinese and American government. The concerns about the Chinese government controlling Huawei eventually shifted to the company's deployment of the fifth-generation mobile network, otherwise known as 5G. But that's not all. The Chinese government decision to pass a new law that compels any domestic companies to assist the government when asked or required is also a concern that Huawei might be compromised. As a result, the United States government took several steps in bid to stop Huawei from gaining a stronghold of the US market. The most significant step was the ban on government purchases of Huawei equipment and gear, and turning down government help to any network carriers that used equipment from Huawei. Soon after it was announced, top network carriers like AT&T and Verizon Communications pulled out of a deal to distribute Huawei smartphones. While the ties and suspicion of the Chinese government involvement with Huawei continued to cause panic in the higher ranks of the US government, other countries like Canada, Germany, and Britain haven't made any direct moves to restrict the activities of Huawei, citing that they don't have adequate procedures in place to test all Huawei's equipment for security. However, the case isn't the same for the Far East region like New Zealand and Australia, as both countries have banned Huawei from erecting any 5G network structure. There are also indications that other countries like Germany will revisit the issue soon. In 2022, investigations by the FBI revealed that Huawei's Chinese government-made equipment was capable of disrupting United States nuclear arsenal communication. In 2017, the Chinese government made an offer to spend a whopping $100 million on building an ornate Chinese garden at the National Arboretum in Washington, D.C. The proposed ornate garden would have temples, several pavilions, and a 70-foot-wide pagoda. Sounds interesting, yes? The proposal thrilled the local officials in charge of the deal, as they hoped it would serve as a tourist attraction for thousands of people yearly. However, when the Counterintelligence Department of the United States started digging into the deal, they found several red flags and concluded it was perhaps an attempt by the Chinese government to spy on the US through Huawei. First, the proposed pagoda was to be strategically placed on the highest points of Washington, D.C., about 2 miles from the capital, making it a perfect spot for signal collection. If that wasn't fishy enough, counterintelligence also discovered that Chinese officials intended to build the pagoda using material shipped to the United States in diplomatic pouches, a specific material that US customs are barred from checking. Federal officials of the US eventually killed the project in a quiet manner before construction began. Since then, federal officials of the United States have constantly investigated any land purchases by the Chinese that are close to critical infrastructure. They've also shut down a few high-profile regional consulates that the US government believes are a hotbed for Chinese spies, and blocked all they saw as a direct attempt to plant listening devices close to sensitive government and military facilities. One of the most alarming discoveries by the FBI was related to Chinese-made Huawei equipment at the top of the cell towers close to United States military bases in the rural Midwest region. According to several sources close to the discovery, the FBI discovered the equipment was capable of recording and disrupting highly classified and restricted Defense Department communication, including those utilized by the United States Strategic Command, which oversees the country's nuclear weapon. It's nothing new that the United States strongly suspects and has concerns over the Chinese government control of Huawei and its goal of installing equipment close to military areas. However, the extent of this investigation and its findings have never been made known or reported. The origin dates back to Obama's administration. Several sources, including former and current national security officials, described the nature of the findings CNN. However, they all spoke on the condition that they might be granted anonymity because they're not permitted to speak about it publicly. In its findings, it remains unclear if the intelligence community was able to ascertain whether any data from the US was intercepted and sent back to Beijing from these towers. According to CNN, sources close to the issue stated that, from a technical standpoint, it's incredibly difficult to prove a given package of data was stolen and sent overseas. As expected, the Chinese government firmly denied it made any efforts to spy on the United States. Similarly, Huawei released a statement to CNN, denying that its equipment was capable of operating in any manner relating to the stealing of information and communication from the United States Department. However, according to CNN, sources familiar with the investigation revealed that Huawei's equipment was capable of not only performing commercial cell traffic functions, but also capable of tapping into highly restricted airwaves used by the US military and disrupt important strategic commands communication of the US, giving the Chinese government a potential entrance into America's nuclear arsenal. The sources said, "This gets into some of the most sensitive things we do. It would impact our ability to essentially command and control the nuclear triad that goes into the BFD category. If it's possible for that to be disrupted, this is a very bad day." If there was a chance that Huawei would beat the allegations of having ties with the Chinese government or being established by them, then the arrest of Meng Wanzhou left the company with a significant setback. Now, before you ask why, Meng is the daughter of Huawei founder Zhen Fei. Her arrest after she was allegedly involved in breaching US trade sanctions. The circumstances behind the arrest raised security concerns among watching nations. For starters, Reuters published an investigation around 2012 about Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei's relationship with a company called Skycom that attempted to sell Hewlett-Packard computer equipment to an Iranian mobile phone operator, going against trade sanctions. The sanctions investigations came long before the trade war. However, the arrest was at the wrong time, when President Xi Jinping and Trump reached a temporary truce in the trade war. The arrest caused financial markets to turn negative amidst fear that it could scupper the truce. In truth, the United States didn't deliberately provoke China. It was an awkward coincidence that the Chinese government eventually went great lengths to resolve. 5 years after the United States' 2018 sanctions crippled Huawei, the company has now found a new ground in its continuous battle with the US. Huawei is now a significant weapon used by the Chinese government in a battle over semiconductors that will have great effect in the world's economy for many decades to come. Contrary to what was previously reported, Huawei plays a deeper role in China's chip industry. Apart from being the most significant customer for China's leading chip designer and chip producers, Huawei is providing increased engineering and financial support to much smaller companies in strategic areas of the chip production supply chain without opening up its involvement in the US. If anything, this proves once again that the company is actively controlled by the Chinese government, as the support it's receiving from the government is currently at an unprecedented level. In 2023, Bloomberg News reported that it uncovered several enterprises backed and sponsored by Shenzhen City Government Investment Fund. The fund is aimed at helping Huawei create a self-sufficient chip network that includes chip equipment developers, optical specialists, and chemical manufacturers. The support comes in addition to a $30 billion state-sponsored fund aimed at helping Huawei build several chip fabrication facilities. The question that comes to mind at this point, why is the Chinese government investing so much in Huawei? And the only logical answer would be because it has secret interest in the company or probably secretly owns it. Kendra Schaffer, a partner at Beijing-based consultancy Trivium China, said, "Huawei is now a center point. The export controls have pushed all the state and industry all together in a way we haven't seen before." In response to the allegations, Huawei denied receiving support from the Chinese government in developing semiconductor technologies. In a statement released, the company said, "This is entirely speculation and conjecture based on information online." According to sources familiar and close to the matter who asked not to be named due to the sensitive nature of this topic, the decision to make Huawei the leader of China aims to build self-sufficient chip industry is a result of a direct order from top government officials. The Chinese government considers Huawei a rare national champion with the courage, exposure, and technological expertise to push back. Since its inception in 1987, the company made its mark in the telecommunication equipment industry, its initial line of business, before expanding into the mobile phone industry. Its founder, Ren Zhifei, had long prepared for a possible disaster before it struck. The company has long kept a group of black swans on the premise of its main campus as a reminder to avoid being complacent and prepare for any unexpected crisis. Over a decade ago, when Huawei entered its initial boom stage, Ren Zhifei told his engineers that constant investment in its semiconductor research was the only way the company would fend off any mortal threat. Ren said, "We can't just let others choke us and die because of that one product." It was as if he knew a time would come when the Chinese government would come knocking. In order to survive after being blacklisted by the United States in 2019, Ren moved about 10,000 of the company's developers into a 24 work-hour shift. The aim was to speed up the redesign of its circuit boards and software so they could work without requiring any American technology. Eventually, that all-out effort approach kept the company in business, and soon, the Chinese government started showing its support, paving the way for the company's interdependent relationship. To fully understand the Chinese government's secret control over Huawei, the launch of the Mate 60 Pro smartphone in August 23 is a great indicator. At the time, Huawei made the phone's release date coincide with the visit of Gina Raimondo, the United States Commerce Secretary, to China. One of the reasons for the decision was an order from the top government official who wanted China to show some muscle by displaying what it was capable of doing. The request to shift the launch date came as a huge surprise to Huawei, as they had already planned to release the phone at a later date. While Huawei eventually kept with the new launch date, they couldn't perform the usual pizzazz or even a proper press event explaining details of the new smartphone. As usual, Huawei was back in the denying business, a now regular occurrence anytime it faced allegations. The company denied that the Chinese government ordered it to launch the Mate 60 Pro smartphone earlier than originally planned. A major significance of the Mate 60 Pro phone was that it contained a high proportion of advanced made-in-China technological components, particularly the 7nm processor from Shanghai Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation. While some press from the US considered the phone as a patriotic triumph, it also sparked intense debate within the United States about whether its efforts to slow down the Chinese government's technological advancement was even working. When Bloomberg conducted a teardown of the phone, it discovered that most of its components were indeed made in China. In Washington, D.C., the concern was that China's new semiconductor powering all Huawei smartphones could have applicable use in its military operations, such as supercomputers for groundbreaking surveillance and AI-controlled drones. Once this information became common knowledge among top US government officials, the US became more determined to curtail China's defense capabilities amid the tension between both states regarding Taiwan's future. Further investigation showed that Huawei was receiving significant assistance from the investment fund operated by the state government of Shenzhen, where Huawei happens to have its headquarters. The Shenzhen Major Industry Investment Group Co. was founded back in 2019 with state capital that was given direct orders to support China's chip efforts, and Huawei specifically. A move that shows once again that the Chinese government has a long-standing secret history with Huawei, which they are not interested in spilling. The Shenzhen Industry Group invested in over a dozen companies across the supply chain, including 3 chip production facilities that have been linked to Huawei. However, the most important operation was later known to be a chip-making tool company called Sea Carrier Technology Limited, founded in 2021. Sea Carrier has a symbiotic and close relationship with Huawei, allowing it to interface with the international research arm of the tech giant, known as 2012 Lab. Ren Zhifei gave it the name in honor of Ronald Emmerich Doomsday film, in which China succeeded while nobody else could. According to patent transfer information published by the China National Intellectual Property Administration, Huawei transfers around a dozen patents to Sea Carrier, including data center design, soundproof tech equipment for electronic machines. As part of their relationship, Huawei quickly debunked any possible rumors that they were collaborating, saying that any suggestion it had an in-depth relationship with Sea Carrier to partner on chip technologies was inconsistent with facts. On the other hand, Shenzhen Major Industry Investment Group, Sea Carrier, and its associates didn't provide any comment regarding their relationship with Huawei. While both parties seem reluctant to reveal the extent of their relationship and partnership, the fact remains that it's closer than they claim. Sea Carrier operates in several locations around Shenzhen. Its main office is located in an industrial park that is known to be affiliated with China's Academy of Sciences. Another notable Sea Carrier facility is on top floor of six-story building located inside of a small industrial park in the eastern part of Shenzhen suburbs. The facility produces components needed to manufacture semiconductor equipment, including pressure control valves, laser-driven light source gears, and pumps. People familiar with working relationship reveal that Sea Carrier is important to Huawei and is more than just a manufacturer. Sea Carrier also acts as a connection between Huawei and the entire supply chain. For instance, the information provided by Tiancha shows that Sea Carrier is the largest shareholder in Z-Top Technologies Co., an optical machine maker. Z-Top's technology is an integral part of microchip production that is built on several layers of transistors bound to a silicon wafer. To achieve this, the company uses lithography, which involves the projection of light through a printable blueprint of patterns. To see how deep this gets, the second largest shareholder of Z-Top after Sea Carrier is Changchun Institute of Optics, Fine Mechanics and Physics, which is a known affiliate of the elite Chinese Academy of Sciences. It is renowned for developing some of the best optical technologies for lithography machines in China. Lithography is a crucial area in chip making because Dutch company ASML holding NV created a monopoly on ultraviolet lithography gear, which is required to make the most advanced chips. The monopoly means it has never sold these machines to China. Now, coupled with the sanctions by the United States, ASML also stopped selling most deep ultraviolet equipment to Chinese customers. After the blacklisting, Huawei made a swift and calculated move to hire some previous ASML employees to assist in working on chip-making machines. While it might take a long time to catch up, saying that it took the Western several decades and millions of dollars to actualize, Huawei's launch of Mate 60 Pro smartphone suggests that the company is making gigantic effort and progress. While Huawei didn't reveal technical details of the Mate 60 Pro, a teardown of the smartphone conducted by Tech Insights for Bloomberg showed it was actually powered by an SMIC advanced 7nm processor, suggesting that China was roughly 5 years behind the most advanced processor technology. Experts in the United States government claim the plan to keep China at least 8 years behind. While this seems to be working at the moment, Huawei's new commercial boost might help them advance quicker than expected. The launch of the Mate 60 Pro reinvigorated its smartphone business, and experts predicted sales would reach 60 million in a year. Chris Miller, the author of Chip War, The Fight for the World's Most Critical Technology, said, "More government subsidies will make it even harder for Huawei to portray itself as independent. But subsidies will also let Huawei sell products at lower prices. In many emerging markets, this will probably enable Huawei to win market share." Several analysts also expect China to keep selling billions in the chip race as it aims to level up with the United States and not fall behind in ambition in fast-growing fields like AI. Dylan Patel, founder of the research group Semi-Analysis, said, "The scale of subsidies is massive, far beyond what people usually think. They'll build apartment buildings, help with land, and take no income taxes." According to Clifford Kurtz, an analyst with S&P Global Ratings, China doesn't need to have established self-sufficiency at all steps of the semiconductor supply chain. He says the key for them is to create a domestic alternative in 4 or 5 steps of the processor, where the United States and its allies can choke off supplies. This means China and Huawei will likely focus on concentrated sectors like lithography, wafer production, electronic design automation, and EDA. Since the United States dominates the chip design market by region and value, Kurz said, "The key thing for Beijing is to have progress in the critical stages. They have done an analysis on the whole supply chain since at least 2014. The purpose of the funding is to invest where they think they can have the most impact." Ren Zhengfei, the founder of Huawei, has had a long, complicated relationship with the Chinese government for several years. when the United States pressed other Western governments to ban Huawei telecommunication equipment for fear that it could be used as a spying tool for the Communist Party. He maintained that his company wasn't in bed with the Chinese government, nor was it being secretly controlled by them. Yet, when his daughter, the CFO of Huawei, was arrested and detained in the US and Canada due to allegations of fraud, the Chinese government went to extreme lengths to get her freed. When she was released in 2021, she returned to China, receiving a hero's welcome. If anything, it suggests that the Chinese government has a secret interest in Huawei, and Ren should be thankful his daughter was freed. If you enjoyed watching the video, do leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories and hidden secrets.